apples and oranges here. I'll tell you why.
Maybe, yeah.
Because what you're doing is the linguistic miracle, you're completely ignoring that. And you're going about the other
I don't
miracles
know about
of
that
nature.
too much.
That's
so
why
because I haven't read
in order
this
for
in
you
that.
to... Part of the linguistic miracle. Exactly. Just thought I'll
something
That I agree. I don't know much about the linguistic, as in I don't appreciate.
So when he
the
says that
linguistics.
the Quran is something that is inimitable, you're talking about the linguistic miracles here. When Mansur and the Quran, when he says that bring a chapter like it, you know the smallest chapter in the Quran is only like 3 sentences, okay? And at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we had people who were basically excellent poets and in prose and in academia. In terms of the Arabic language, they were experts at that time.
I don't know why they didn't do it. So
They were given the challenge.
I don't know why they didn't do it. So that is nothing to do with me. I can't. If there was a good challenge would have been in any form of language in the whole world. Throughout the mankind, if you can bring anything, that would have been a brilliant.
No, but you see,
what can I do about
when you're going
that?
to compare,
These guys are
The
failing the challenge.
Quran gives you that extra clause. It says, bring something like it, right?
But
If you
if I
can't do
bring
it
something
yourself,
like it
if you
now-
cannot do it yourself, then bring your helpers and your supporters besides Allah to do this job.
Yeah,
And it
I
did not
understand.
say, it didn't say the challenge is only restricted to that time.
Yeah. So I mean, now for somebody to know the skill set which these guys have got at that time, because it's a very particular skill set which will then enable you to bring something like it, right? Do you agree?
In
That
science,
skill
when
set-
we have our hypotheses, right?
Yes.
And someone is going to disprove my hypothesis. These are very complex things, isn't it? So it requires specialists to do it.
Yes.
The Quran is saying if you are not a specialist yourself,
But anybody can be a specialist,
listen,
isn't it?
if the Quran doesn't say you Tom Dick and Harry do it, the Quran is saying if you are in doubt and you cannot do yourself, then go and seek your help and supporters. Meaning what? Go and seek those specialists who can help you. So it does give you this challenge in a way and the tools to meet it.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, the scientific, you can prove it at, so mathematical proofs which have been there, they could be disproven by anybody now from any part of the world.
Exactly.
In Quran, that challenge, to me at least, it looks very local challenge of that particular milieu, of that particular time frame. It's a very short, closed window where you had that kind of language being spoken by people. That skill set.
The language is still alive. It's not dead.
Besides,
The Quranic language.
That Quranic language is still alive today.
But is it like widespread?
You can go
or
and
is it-
study it if you want.
there is a miracle in the number as well. So the number, it matches the linguistic miracle of the Quran, which rely on each other. And you will find, now you start to study, you will find it is matching as well. That's why all the Arab from 1,400 years, they couldn't match it because it's from the creator who said, I'm going to save it. And I'm going to save it from correction, and I'm going to save it to challenge to mankind to produce something like it. And this is simple. And that's why Prophet Muhammad by himself, after 200 years, there's now how many Muslims around the world? You know, you cannot force people to believe, but the belief itself, because it's backed up with all kinds of miracles. So people will accept it, like it or not. You know, unless you are arrogant and want to reject it, because you don't want to reject it. You want to reject it. Anyway,
So the point at hand is this. If a book of guidance is given by God to the people, it needs to be understood by the initial recipient of
what's her name?
the revelation. It needs to be accessible to all people, not to just the professors
And your
of
father, what he
science. And so on. So you cannot expect a book to describe all the complexities of science and mathematics within it, because then people will be not understanding anything of these things. They will say, oh, we don't know, why we're just there. If God is to communicate something to you,
But God has already created a lot of things which we don't understand. That's what my point is. He's already created so many complex things which we don't understand at all. Absolutely. but still He has created it. So why can't I not expect of God to create something which is equally accessible to people, laymen like us, and also to experts
No, he's done that
all
with
time.
He's done that with the Quran for all times.
All time.
Quran all times. The Quran is for all times, and you can see the Quran, the laws the Quran gives and legislation gives. Is it for a local time, period, and scale of a geographic region, or is it for all times and all places? So you can examine this kind of sociological laws, and you can examine, to do with economics, to do with scientific understanding of the world, and so on. You can examine the Quran, and the Quran is giving you holistically all these issues. But it gives it in such a way that is accessible to everyone. But on deeper reflection, people can discover more and more as they're doing every day. Right? More and more things from the Quran. So when the Quran said, for example, to the first recipient, that Allah has created this universe, the earth and everything else beside it, the samawat, the skies and heavens, as one piece, and God parted it asunder and made every living thing from water. To them, they understood in their level of understanding. But we appreciate this now a bit more in our level of understanding.
Deeper understanding.
Deeper understanding of these things. So it is important to realize this fact. The Quran, if it gave all this complex theory of relativity and the mathematical equation to solve it and so on, then it will not be accessible to everyone to say, what is this all about? This doesn't make sense to me, right? The Quran didn't come to teach you about science. It came to tell you about the reality and give you the tools to use to understand the reality using science. Yeah? So it gave you the method of science. It gave you what sort of avenues that you should go to approach that field of science, so that you get the right conclusion. Because if you want to know about the truth about something, this is the approach that you should take. The Quran gives you that method. So the Quran gives you the method. You can make this conclusion based on that particular methodology the Quran provides. So the scientific methodology is mentioned in the Quran. If you want to know about this, go and search here. Go and look how Allah created the universe and originated the creation. All of this is there. So what should we expect from a book? It should tell me, why am I here? It should tell me where I came from. It should tell me what's going to happen to me after I die, because I know I'm going to die. Everyone knows they're going to die, whether you like it or not. So what happens after death? What's happening to me? Why am I here in this place? Is there a reason of my creation? Right. How do I behave in this life? Do I just behave, according to my wishes and dictates, or do I have to follow the rules and guidance from the Creator? What awaits for me after death? Is there another life? And what is the nature of this life? How do I make sure that I don't go into the bad part of the life in the hereafter, like where there is, sufferings and torture and so on, and I go to a good place where there's happiness and joy and bliss and tranquility? This is what this book should describe. It should describe to me in such a way that it is sound and it resonates with my heart and my mind. So it is not just emotionally appealing, but it should be appealing to my mind and my intellect. And it should tell me to use my intellect rather than my heart alone. And the Quran does that throughout this book. What else does it describe? It should describe something about the reality of the past, so that I learn from it. Yeah? So that I don't make the same mistakes. And the Quran does this. So if you were to examine a book from God, what are the things you expect? Describes that. So you ask yourself when you research, why doesn't the Quran describe this? And you'll find that actually the Quran talks about this, because God has not, in fact, Allah tells us He hasn't left anything not described. Every examples have been given so that people can appreciate and understand the issue. So for you to examine this book, you need to sit down on your own pace and reflect deeply on it. Reflect without a bias. Reflect without some prejudice behind. As I said, it's very difficult. I am biased, everyone's biased. But we have to remove some of this bias as much as we can, and then say, look, I want to seek the truth, so I have to make sure my bias is not an obstacle. Okay? Right. Then, of course, this is for you, and then I make my inferences from what I have studied. If I have questions, I should ask people, those who believe in it. Okay, how do you explain this? If it doesn't make sense, go and ask them. If you stop asking any questions and making your own mind, then you haven't really thought about it deeply, because there should be something there which should really somehow, interact with you in a way that you don't agree or you agree. Because the Quran talks to the human psyche, human nature. Our human psyche and nature sometimes is not fine-tuned properly, because we have somehow made ourselves to believe in such a way. Oh, you know what? I don't like the Germans. I don't like the Arabs. I don't like the Bengalis or whatever, right? Because I had bad experience. You have to somehow bring out all of these issues and say, look, the psyche, human psyche, should be that if I'm a human being and if you're a human being, we must have some common ancestry, right? So somehow we are all related. So how can I undermine you in some kind of language and race and so on and so forth? It doesn't make any sense. So I have to overcome this, this obstacle and barrier and examine this. So there's a lot of things to think about, but you need to
ask you some question apart from the discussion we were having, just a quick ones, maybe you can just answer. Why is this supposed to be the last revelation? So you can never get my head around it. Why? Because now more than ever we actually need a prophet to tell us about this word. I know we can still stick to the old, so because we haven't changed much in terms of humanity and everything, so laws we can still apply those old laws, but now more than ever we do need a prophet. Why does it have to stop with Prophet Muhammad?
Sure. So let's understand the need for a revelation. Initially, why do you need a revelation? Because revelation will tell you exactly what to do. So that revelation at the very beginning, right? So the guidance came and people followed. Now if people had access to this guidance everywhere around the world and it was sufficient for them, they don't need anything else.
I see where you're going,
right?
Yeah.
But if there were people spreading around the world and revelation hasn't gone to them, then you need specific prophets to come to those places to remind them, to tell them what is required of them. Because God is just. He cannot punish a nation unless He tells them what they're supposed not to do, right? So they have to know what is for them they should follow and what they should abstain from doing so. What if people from their own desires and wishes, as time went, they corrupted the revelation and guidance? You need another prophet or a messenger. Do?
Why can't Allah God make the revelation uncorruptible? Right from the start. Right from the start. Why can't He make it uncorruptible?
Yeah. So you can potentially you can have a revelation, but remember the initial revelation.
Because He must have known in His wisdom that these are going to be corrupted.
Yeah. No problem.
This is a test for
Initially, you can have a revelation. Initially, you can have a revelation, and which remains exactly the same. Right? Now, what we say as Muslims is about God, about hereafter, about heaven, about hell, about the judgment. These are the realities of the future. Always remains the same. This message has always been consistently the same. What has been different are rules and regulations for us. How we should behave and not behave, what we should do and how we should interact. These things.
Sorry, come again. You're saying.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
At one time, people were not stealing anything, right? When the first human beings were created, no one's stealing. God doesn't need to put the laws saying, do not steal. And if you steal, this is what you should do. There was no need for it. Right? So that would be a revelation which will be absent from it because there was no need for it. So if you had that intact and it continued, and then time arose later, people were behaving in a way they're misappropriate, they're stealing when it's totally unfair to steal. So what do you need? You need some kind of guidance from God what to do, because God doesn't just leave you alone to make up your own rules and guidance and then you realize, oh, that wasn't the best thing to do in this case. God, being merciful, He gives us the rules and guidance of how we interact in our society. So that thing became a requirement later on because the need arose then.
necessity.
Yeah, necessity. It wasn't earlier on needed. So you have to have a communication from God, now preferably through prophets and messengers, bringing this particular guidance on this issue. So that's why you would need another prophet clarifying on this issue. So you have prophets to give you the initial guidance. If it remains intact, that's fine, you don't need anything. But if need arose because of people have gone to the other places and there's no prophet message there, you need a local individual, a guide from God, appointed to give you this guidance. So it'll be another messenger. They might say the same thing, exactly, but you need another messenger. If the message gets corrupted, God sends another messenger or a prophet to correct that message that got corrupted and say, this is what you should be doing. He might just give you the same message that got corrupted and give you the clarity of it. But you might also have a need where you need revelation to tell you now when needs arise elsewhere, in another locality, at another time. So you can have a continuous prophets like this ongoing. And in fact, we believe there have been many prophets like this throughout the time. Many prophets. What has happened is in our human reality, some things have changed. The world has got smaller and smaller and smaller to extend that it is now accessible. Human beings can travel around all the earth and so on and so forth, right? Communication about revelation can go everywhere. At that point, it wasn't like this. So if God gives us a revelation from Him, which is universal for all times and all places, and it will be preserved, then you don't need another revelation. Because another revelation will be for what? If you need another guidance for something else. Or if it gets corrupted.
That's right.
Yeah? But if God says you cannot corrupt the Quran, He will preserve it. And He's given all the guidance that you need, is for all times and all places, then you don't need another revelation.
So you're basically presuming that He has given all the guidance.
That's what the Quran says. God has completed
we don't
and
need
perfected.
any extra guidance in this changing world of 2016.
You don't need to bring anything that you think requires the guidance. Requires the
I
guidance.
find it on the floor, I give it to the
Yeah,
child.
and then you will see the Quran has given you guidance on this issue.
We'll see.
God has given us
someone-
the
I
universal
didn't want to
guidance
play
for
with
all
it.
times and all
I'm too
places,
old for
as
it.
the Quran says. He's perfected it and completed His religion and made this religion Islam. Yeah, so that's why you don't need another religion.
Okay, thanks so much. Sorry I didn't catch.
I didn't get your name either. Rohit, I'm Mansur. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and hopefully we should speak
Come again, Rohit.
in the future. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Take care, Rohit. Come again, my friend.
Yeah,
Take care.
cheers,
Bye, bye.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Vegard and I'm a Norwegian Muslim convert. I'm working with the Dawah organization Islamnet to establish the Deen of Allah here in Norway. We give Dawah and present Islam to the Norwegian people. Isn't that great? To be more efficient in our Dawah, we are establishing a first of its kind Masjid and Dawah Center, where we will have Islamic programs, classes, lectures and education for non-Muslims. I am so grateful to Allah for having guided me to Islam. Sadly, I am the only Muslim in my family. It hurts me that my parents haven't accepted Islam yet, and I ask Allah to guide them. But it also gives me a special drive to work for the establishment of Islam. I don't want anyone to miss the chance of becoming Muslim. Maybe my mom and dad become Muslim one day thanks to you. If we can establish this center, I could bring my parents to come and learn about Islam in our native language, which is a challenge today with the mosque here speaking Somali, Arabic and Urdu. The Prophet ﷺ said that the Muslims are like one body. If you can feel my pain, would you please help me relieve it? You are now my new family. Click the link and donate to establish this masjid and share in the reward for the message of Islam reaching the corners of Norway.